Well, I'm excited to be here with you, Rob. Rob is the owner of two event venues here in West Michigan, Heritage Barn Company along the Lakeshore and the Lit here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I've known Rob for a couple of years after he came back to the West Michigan area and became a business owner in the area. And I'm just really excited to have you on today.
Thanks, Russ. Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure. So I would love for you to tell the audience, tell the world, all right, you own venues in West Michigan. Like, how did you decide to buy venues and become a venue owner? How does that happen in the world of Rob?
Yeah, well, after college, I went out to Colorado, started working at a venue out there, kind of fell in love with the industry, weddings, events, just, the whole gambit. Did that for about 8 years. And at one point I realized, okay, you know what? I think I'd like to do this kind of on my own, stop answering to someone, be my own boss, And then a couple college buddies actually back here in Grand Rapids were like, hey, if you want to come back to Grand Rapids, we'd love to go in with you on some properties. And so flew back, looked at a handful of places and ended up kind of finding the first one, which is the barn out on the lakeshore, which kind of, allowed me to uproot my family from Colorado and bring them out here to Michigan. And then shortly after found the Lit, which was, a downtown venue that needed some kind of TLC. So I ended up going in there and renovating that one and opening that one up.
That's awesome. And so you guys host weddings, you host events, and I know I've been in your space. It's absolutely, both of them, they're absolutely beautiful locations and beautiful venues. So I'm curious, we're obviously in unprecedented times right now over the last handful of weeks. And so I would love to hear your perspective of how the chaos of, coronavirus has kind of manifested itself, and kind of walk us through, what it looked like from your perspective, kind of hearing about it maybe a bunch of weeks ago, and then now kind of being in the mix of it here in the West Michigan area.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation that we've never encountered before. Seeing everything kind of start off over in China and expand through Europe. I think, the media and Americans just in general were not really taking it as seriously as they should have been, myself included. And so kind of seeing everything develop, I realized, oh man, this is actually something that we need to be paying attention to. Not only just in a health-wise, but from a business standpoint, because if we are trying to gather people, but at the same time stop or slow the spread of this virus, we can't gather people, which is our core business. So at that point, that's when I really started to kind of take a step back and realize, okay, how is this going to affect us? What do we need to do to get prepared for it? And where do we need to go from here? And so that's where we kind of started saying, okay, we need to figure out what's going on, see what kind of, government mandates are being put in place, communicate with our clients, really reach out to everyone, especially within the next, 8 weeks, just because that's where the bulk of this issue is going to be hitting. And just making sure that people are either able to reschedule if it's an event that can't be rescheduled, canceling that and refunding money, and just making sure that everyone's on the same page and we're communicating clearly. So,
yeah, was it, obviously I can't imagine you expected it. You probably got a massive amount of volume in a short amount of time. And so I'm sure that was unexpected, but I can only imagine what, the people on the other end of the phone or the other end of the email chain were feeling, considering they've got to reschedule all kinds of things. And so have you found that most people are rescheduling, or have you found that most people are canceling? I'm just curious what, because rescheduling from 8 weeks from today just means that your summer, fall, and winter are going to be busier. So I'm just curious, what's the outlook been for your clients?
Yeah, I would say probably about 95% of our events have rescheduled. We've only had a couple that had to cancel, and the ones that canceled were not weddings. I would say 100% of the weddings did reschedule and move their dates into this fall / late summer, early fall kind of, time frame. The events that did cancel were more corporate, nonprofit events where they're just like, hey, this was really a time sensitive, event where we can't really move it. It doesn't make sense to move it. So those were the ones that kind of canceled. But for the most part, everyone's kind of, knows that we're in this together. So it's nice that we're able to, work together on this. And, you know, people are being understanding of like, I need to move my event, unfortunately, because we need to do our part, So, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everyone's has to be empathetic towards it, right? You as a venue, me as a photographer, it's like I can't go to your event if it's not happening. So it's okay. We're all in this together. Like you said, I love that. So when it came to client communication, how have you communicated? What's the language you've been using for people that do have events that are getting rescheduled, or people that even that are maybe further into the summer that are have anxiety about their event? How have you been communicating with the people that have elected to utilize your services?
Yeah, lots of emails. Obviously when we first kind of saw the seriousness of this situation, we shot out an email to all of our clients saying, "Hey, we're watching and monitoring this situation closely. These are the actions that we're taking at this moment." Which at that point, events were not mandated to shut down, so we were, increasing our sanitation between or disinfectant during events, in between events, all that kind of stuff. Obviously putting out rules to our employees and putting signs up for guests to, wash hands and all that jazz. Well, that didn't last very long before the government was like, "Hey, nope, we need to shut down these events." And so at that point, it's more communication to the clients of emails, phone calls, saying, "Hey guys, right now we need to be focused on basically what's happening in the next 30 to 60 days, just because that's really what the government's focused on. Anything outside of that 30 to 60 day kind of time frame, please just sit tight, be patient. We're still here for you, but let's focus on getting these, immediate events, rescheduled. And then as we see kind of the situation, develop, and get some more guidance from, our government and the CDC and all that kind of stuff, we're able to, really work with clients that are a little further out. But at this point, I think our main focus is 30 to 60 days at this, time. So.
Yeah, for sure. Have you had any clients that have you been able to come up with creative solutions for clients that had to either reschedule a wedding date or reschedule a business event? They're like, we want to have this on a Saturday, but you know what? We're happy having it on a Thursday. Any creative things that have happened over the past, couple of weeks that has surprised you in working with people that, have anxiety or are stressed out because they have to reschedule stuff, but are willing to be flexible down the road?
Yeah, the barn has been an interesting one, just because it is a seasonal venue. So it's nice that, our weddings and events really don't start till May. So the beginning of May is what we're kind of focusing on now. And luckily, a lot of them are pretty flexible with, going from a Saturday to a Friday, or even to a Sunday. The downtown venue, that one's been pretty interesting, just because we have had to move people from Saturdays to different days of the week, but no Thursdays so far. Pretty much we've been able to fill people in on like a Friday or a Sunday if they originally had a Saturday. So,
Awesome.
it's
That's great.
working out pretty nicely. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. So now that you've obviously spent a bunch of time communicating with clients and figuring out, okay, how do we shift around schedules and reschedules and all that stuff, it now gives you time that you don't have to go execute events, in your spaces. So it gives you some time to go think through your business. So as a fellow business owner, I'm curious how you've been thinking through how to utilize your time. And people are talking about how the economy is going to tank and all this stuff that's going on. But I'm curious what your perspective is. Is this really harmful to your business? I mean, you just said a few minutes ago, 95% of stuff is rescheduling. So I'm curious if you actually see this as a way to utilize your time in a productive way. Talk to me about the framework of your business mindset right now.
Yeah, as far as, it being detrimental to the business, it's definitely, we're taking a hit. I mean, having to move all of the events for the next 2 months into the later part of the year, is kind of taking away from, potential revenue, because at that point we're basically putting people on dates that could have originally been booked for other events. So we are going to see, a pretty large dip in revenue this year. But, the nice thing is right now, kind of this little gift of working from home, being able to focus on things other than executing events, is kind of, it's one of those gifts that you're happy to have, but also not really happy to have. It's been able to allow us to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, what's that to-do list that we keep saying we're going to get to? Really working on our back end systems and our services and processes, and really being able to dial things in on a business operations standpoint, which is really nice because those are the things that sometimes get pushed to kind of the back burner when you start really kind of getting into the busy season of executing events. So yeah, really kind of doing website redesign, being able to get online, do a lot more social, really doing a lot more of the reach out and stuff like that, is something that we're focusing on right now. Basically trying to get ourselves way more dialed in than we currently are. So that way, when we're back up and running and serving clients on a daily basis, their experience is just tenfold better, which is, basically going to be something that we're going to shoot, or that we were shooting for originally, but it just, would have taken a lot longer to get there. So
For sure. So
yeah.
last question is, do you have any advice for other business owners that are kind of weathering this storm that we've never really seen before? What would you like them to know that they should be thinking about doing? What kind of advice would you have for those folks?
Yeah, I think this is definitely a time where all business owners should kind of take a step back and look at their business with a bird's eye view and say, okay, what needs to be fixed? What do we have time now that we haven't had time for in the past? Also, look, okay, if this does take longer than 8 weeks, what does that look like cash flow wise? What does that look capital wise? Do we need to start looking at reducing costs and expenses now? And what does that look like? Obviously, one of the big things that all of America is going through is workers and laying off workers. It's like, okay, if we lay off workers, and they have to go get unemployment, or something happens where they're not able to get unemployment, is there a way that we can keep people on through this time, and still have them be productive for us so we can take care of our employees? Because eventually, once this is over and everything bounces back, we're going to need them to come back to work for us. So really focusing on how do we take care of our employees, how do we set ourselves up to weather this storm, reducing those costs, kind of being able to also look at, okay, how can we kind of dial in our operations, and work on the things that we've been talking about for so long that we just haven't got to. So
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. I think every business owner, everybody who's running a business knows there are always a never-ending list of things to do, right? My wife loves saying, Russ, just remember, there's always more to do. The list never ends. And
yeah,
now we get to be able to sit down, like you said, take a bird's eye view and say, okay, what are the 3 or 4 things that we've been talking about doing for a long time but haven't actually done, and how can we invest some time and fix those, especially in a remote situation where most of us are not out in visiting coffee shops and restaurants because they're shut down, or even going to the office like we normally would on a Monday through Friday situation. So I appreciate that perspective, and I know you guys are going to have a great late spring and summer and fall. I'm excited to be able to come out and watch people have great celebrations at your venue. And I agree. I think we're in a time where there's tension in the economy, tension in culture right now, but it's going to get let loose, and it's going to create a boom later on. And I say that only through the data that you've given, which is 95% of stuff is being rescheduled. So
yeah,
people are still planning. People are still going to go out and spend the dollars that they were planning on spending anyways. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
super encouraging. So last thing, where can people find you? Tell them where they should find you for your barn venue and for the lit. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so the barn is, heritagebarnco.com, on Instagram, Heritage Barn Co., Facebook, Heritage Barn Co. For the downtown lit wedding venue, that one you're talking thelitgr.com, Instagram at thelitgr, Facebook at thelitgr, and then myself, pretty much, email hello@thelitgr.com is the main one that gets to me. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook. Not so much on Instagram personal wise, but business wise, you can get through me there. So
There you go. Awesome. Well, I hope people reach out to you, and I appreciate your time today. And I hope that this season allows you to get what you're looking to get done and creates a big, big tsunami of success later on in 2020.
yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to having you on site as well. So it's always been fun.
Great so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.